If you think about a house, you think about many illusions. But then how you can do it depends on how you've gone to define the things you like. Actually, what I do is what I call my Santa Claus list. I tell clients to make the Santa Claus list, and I see if they can fit, if those lists and the items in and can fit in the project, or we have to just fit them in different stages and different ways and sizes. That's the way I think it is. The budget is being defined by the project. If you know what you want in the project and it's already there, then it can be made to cost. You bring the costs of each item into a regular list of construction items, and then you program how to go into building it. The cost of a house, as far as one cost only, should include being able to go into the house and live it. Installations, functioning, lighting, flooring, finishes, and doors, of course, and windows. That's I think the prime cost for a construction. Once you have the building able to accept you living in it, then unexpected expenses come. It's because those happen when project ideas come to mind even after the project has been done, either from the architect or designer or the wife or the actual owner or whoever is near and gives a good idea. To deal with that, you have to first define in the most precise way what you want to do with the new idea. If you want a jacuzzi on the ceiling, then you have to understand what that involves as far as cost, structure, installations, and it's the ability of the constructor to give you a very close estimate of what you want to do with that idea. The cost per square meter depends on what you want to do. For example, a house that has 100 square meters, after you've defined the project you want in it. If you think you like marble or wood or cement, that'll cost you the differences between each selection. It's sometimes the other way around. You say how much you want to spend, and then we'll try to match that amount. Because first you have to define, as far as the process of a project, you will have a site, you have a requisition of ideas, and then you have a budget, of course. You say I want to spend, say, $1 million for whatever you want to do. And then you go from what you want to put in the space you have designed. The architect has to understand what the client wants, do the psychological profile of the client, and translate it into the actual project, which means understanding the site. That's one thing that's very, very important. Understanding the site is not just knowing where it's going to be, it's how things work around them, how other neighbors are located, how the vegetation, how the water bodies are close by, how the wind crosses, how the sun goes by, everything. If I want the house looking like a rock or glass or both or sheets of wood, whatever, depends on how they've actually come to understand their likenesses. So if they understand what they want and they have a good site, then the next thing is who will do it. It has to be someone with experience, with good qualifications, with actually being able to build what they designed, not just design on paper and not being able to do it on a site. That happens a lot. Many people have good architects that are not good builders. And so that in that case, they would have to be complemented by someone who knows how to build. And if they work together, a much better product will come. If you make a good cost estimate, you make a good project definition via stages, as far as advancing the costs, advancing the money for the things that are going to be built, and the actual results on the site. If you have a nice house and you don't do nice interiors, then it's a crash of a project. Good houses deserve good interiors. Good interiors, I mean good lighting, good furnishing, good positioning of stuff. If you match what the house does to the interiors with the furnishings and the accessories and the gadgets and stuff, then that's a rightly done project. Clients usually have ideas about the design, but not all of them have clear ideas. It's hard to find a client that really knows what he wants. If a client knows what they want, they will get what they want if an architect has a good enough ability to translate that. But if a client doesn't really know what they want, it's the ability of the architect and the designer to make the illusions, the necessities, the ideas in the head of a client to be rightly translated into a design. Timelines for a project have to be defined because that's the way a client is restful about it. First, they can vary because circumstances vary a lot when it's just ideas flowing in from one end to the other. If you have a delay on the client's side, then it should reflect on the actual delaying of the project. So you have to be very open and let the client know that those things can happen, because the flow of ideas is not a thing that can be defined as numbers and as objects. Sometimes ideas flow easily and sometimes they don't. The ability of an architect comes into a position of having the client to say that it'll take a bit longer. Good reasons have to be given because the client wants first good ideas and a good product. Timelines define how well you can fit into those schedules, but they can be flexible, and that's good to know, and that's good to let know the client. Whenever you start a construction, it's not even starting the construction, it's even before that. It's when you start a project. You have to be conscious of where you're at. If you're in a place that has rulings and regulations, if you study them correctly, then you will get the most project for your client. For example, there are places that can tell you that there's a restriction of so many meters from the end of the lot to the inside, but then in small words they tell you, but you can build the top of the garage on that restriction. Whoever does a project for a client in a compound with regulations, they really have to go into those regulations and the exceptions to the regulations and the applications of those regulations, so they could understand whatever they can do and have all the cards on their hands and to be able to manage them to get a better project. Clients who don't understand the project in paper, and come into a site after a few months or weeks and are surprised by what's happening even though it matches the project in paper, then things will happen because they will start changing things, and then everything will go out of project and process, and those things happen a lot. The concept of this house is a very open house, a very sunny house, but that has very nice located spaces that can give you very good human sensation. Whenever I design a house, I try to connect the dots of the functional side with the artistic or expressional side. Detail is very, very important as far as what I do is concerned. Details make the work. It's not the other way around. That's what I say. God is in details. It's something everybody says, and that's what I say too. And good design is in details. Everyday things become very important in the houses I built. A stairway, the way you lit a room, the way you let air through a room, the way you go from one room to the other, the way you feel what you go into a room. Using the senses in everyday fashion and very well solved in an everyday project as a house is very, very important from the way I see things while designing. And enjoying everyday things of an everyday life in a house is mainly what I look for.